So our video presentation is on a study called Next Generation Computing. So what is Next Generation Computing? Next Generation Computing is a study prepared by Erica Weissman, who is a strategic information analyst for the National Research Council of Canada and the Government of Canada. The goal of the paper was essentially to conduct a meta-study of other studies and research endeavors to determine and better understand the potential uses of new technology to aid in defense and security. The study works to identify areas of research to assist in uncovering and understanding the potential impacts of new research on security and defense capabilities. So the objective of the study was to detect and categorize the international R&D domains in the field of next-generation computing, as well as the collaboration networks in the various subdomains in Canada and internationally. The project was conducted in a phased approach. The main purpose of Phase 1 was to identify selected topics with a broader field of next-generation computing for deeper analysis. So here's Phase 1. It revealed a dominance of research in quantum computing and biocomputing, as well as clusters of research in nanocomputing, spintronics, optical/photonic computing, granular computing, neuromorphic computing, are just a few. And on Phase 2, they focused a little more in detail on 4 topics. Uh, those topics were biocomputing, nanocomputing, spintronics, and optical photonic computing. So the first topic that we focused on is biocomputing. So the biocomputing dataset is the largest in this project with 2,160 publications between 2013 and 2016. This subset includes a plethora of information on biocomputing in terms of DNA and molecular computing. Biocomputing is the process of making computers that use biological materials or are used to study biological organisms. The 4 main subtopics associated with biocomputing are DNA computing, membrane computing, and P systems, as well as neuromorphic computing. There were several universities that contributed heavily to the study of biocomputing, including universities in China, Spain, just to name a few. So the first subtopic of biocomputing that we focused on was membrane computing. So membrane computing investigates a class of computing models known as membrane systems, or P systems, which are abstracted from the architecture, structure, and functioning of biological membranes within living cells, as well as how cells are organized in tissues, organs, and higher order structures such as colonies of cells. In particular, membrane computing abstracts the compartmentalized nature of internal structures that are affected by membranes. So as you can see on the right, we have a kind of diagram of what a P system might look like. So the next subtopic for biocomputing is DNA molecular computing. So DNA computing is based on the notion that data can be encoded as biomolecules such as DNA or RNA strands that can be transformed through molecular biological tools to perform arithmetic or logical operations. The 2 main advantages this has over conventional computing is that DNA can carry significantly more data than silicon, as well as operations on DNA are massively parallel. And on the right here, you could see a picture of a DNA sequence. So this is the DNA structure. This is what it looks like. So DNA is similar to code in a way that DNA is the body's instructions for producing proteins, much like code is the computer's instructions for executing a set of instructions. So the next logical step in that process is to get biologists and computer scientists together and have them create a system or some kind of way for the body to interpret code that we create for it, enables for it to do more desirable things, or maybe fight viruses or fight infections, and do things that we wouldn't be able to do without the help of computers or technology. So the next subtopic of the biocomputing category is neuromorphic computing. So this is known as a computing architecture that designs principles that are based on the human brain. It's a new computing paradigm that offers an alternative to von Neumann architectures, and it is currently under intensive international investigation. One of its major goals within neuromorphic systems is to build a, quote, thinking machine so that it can more closely match how the brain works at a functional level. So in recent years, tech entrepreneur Elon Musk has created a company called Neuralink, and what they want to do is they want to create a system that is able to interface with the human brain. So here we have a model of what they want to accomplish in the near future. So this is quite an ambitious goal in the field of biocomputing.
So to start, right? What is nanocomputing? Nanocomputing is a computer whose physical functions or physical dimensions are microscopic, which means very, 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 very small, right? So the field of nanocomputing is a part of the emerging field of nanotechnology, right? There's several types of nanocomputers that have been suggested or proposed by researchers and futurists, right? So electronic nanocomputers would operate in a manner similar to the way present-day microcomputers work, right? But the main difference is the scale of the actual, microcomputer, right? More and more transistors are being able to be squeezed into silicon chips within each passing year, and it's able to revolutionize and change the evolution of integrated circuits, and it makes it more capable of increasing storage capacity and processing power, which means, in essence, something like a cellular device, right? Like my phone here would be able to have the same amount of, microcomputer, or the same type of, be able to carry out the same type of functions a regular desktop might be able to. Obviously not comparable like level to level, but my phone will be able to do functions similar to a desktop, right? Okay. So, with that being said, the nanocomputing dataset is the smallest within this project, right? With only 71 publications between the years of 2013 and 2015, right? So two of the major topics in this dataset include quantum dot cellular automata, which are related to reversible computing, and nanomagnetic logic, right? Okay. And like I said, some examples of this are iPads, iPhones, smartwatches, stuff like that, right? It's all microscopic level. They're able to, store the chips onto the devices and make them run at almost the same amount of pace that a traditional desktop or traditional computer would be able to, right? So I'm gonna go into quantum dot cellular automata, which is also known as QCA, right? It's a transistorless nanotechnology based on a computing patagram. QCA represents binary information in cells that are stuck together through electromagnetic fields, and it has no current flow, right? Memory is utilized as one of the primary parts in different circuits designs, and that kind of creates the design of optimization within the RAM, and it becomes one of the most attractive areas within QCA technology that's actually looked at, right? So because of all those things, it makes it one of the most viewed, one of the most, worked upon, things like that, right? Okay. So with that being said, right, the state of each cell is actually determined by the neighboring cell and not by the distance, right? Which is a natural match for nano devices. So using different polarization values, logic operations can be performed with very low power consumption rates compared to traditional field effect transistors, right? Much of the research on QCA is coming from the field of reversible computing, right? Reversible computing is the study of computational models which are organized to be two-way deterministic, right? So while traditional computers use irreversible logic operations that destructively overwrite previous outputs, reversible computing functions without any information loss, right, is done by, this new style of traditional computers, right? But consequently, right, so on the other hand, right, as a result of that, reversible computing can reuse some of the signal energy that is typically lost when you run the function with traditional computing, right? So, now I'm going to talk about a little subtopic, right? It's nanomagnetic logic, which still has to do with nanocomputing, right? So NML, or nanomagnetic logic, is an extension of QCA, and it is viewed as a magnetic implementation of QCA where information signals are processed through magnetic field interactions with nanocells, right? As such, it is known as the field-coupled computing, or previously known as the magnetic QCA, right? So while the electron-based version of QCA is susceptible to size variations, nanomagnetics exhibit a different type of collective spin behavior, and it's more immune to different structure variations and stuff like that, right? So it has a lot of advantages with, non-volatility, scalability, reconfigurable logic, and stuff like that. So NML has a lot of benefits to it. It has a lot of advantages that it provides, with that style of nanocomputing, right? So, that being said, nanomagnetic logic devices have proven to meet 5 basic tenets that are considered essential for the digital systems, right? And I'm going to break down each one step by step, right? So the first one, it has a non-linear response to characteristics due to the magnetic hysteresis loop, okay? Number 2, it helps deliver a functionally complete logic set enabled by the 3-input majority gate and the NOT operation, right? Naturally achieved by the dot-to-dot coupling of the system, right? Number 3, It is able to signal amplification greater than 1 and is demonstrated by showing the feasibility of a 1 to 3 fan out, where the energy for the gain is provided by an external clocking field. Right? Number 4, the output of one device can drive another one, as the fringing fields from individual magnets can act as a neighbor. As like I said earlier, right, the determination of a cell depends on the other cell, right? And number 5, the final rule, it helps give back unwanted feedback and it's preventable. Unwanted feedback is preventable through clocking with nanomagnetic logic, right? So, despite the major success already seen through NML, there's a lot of limitations as well, right? So it has its good things and it has its bad things. It has its positives and it has its negatives, right? So there's still limitations, which includes moving the external clock, right? Sourced on chip. It helps develop reliable magnetic interconnects, right? It helps develop an electromagnetic interface for integration with the chip, and it improves circuit reliability and fault tolerance, right? But managing the thermal noise and fabrication related imperfections kind of lead to errors sometimes. It leads to mistakes, right? And the mistakes normally have to do with the nearest neighbor data flow, right? Or the higher latency, or it could just result in low processing speed, which means it's going to take a long time before the function was to pass, right? Cool. And that's pretty much it on right now for nanotechnology.
So the next topic of our study is spintronics. So the spintronics data set had 562 records between 2013 and 2016. Spintronics, or sometimes referred to as magnetoelectronics, is an emerging technology that exploits both the spin instead of charge and the magnetic movement of electrons. Research on spintronics actually dates back to the 70s, but saw a renewed interest with the discovery of magnetic tunnel junctions and spin torque transfer devices, MTJ and STT for short. These devices provide potential avenues for replacing CMOS technology with spin-based integrated circuits such as magnetic, random access memory, and spin transistors. The next topic we'll be discussing is optical and photonic computing. So the optical and photonic computing set had over 1,400 publications between 2013 and 2016. So optical computing uses light or photons rather than electricity or electrons to perform computational tasks. Photonic elements such as light sources, modulators, optical routers, photonic diodes, transistors, couplers, and logic gates can be regarded as optical analogies of electronic elements, but require careful design, construction, and materials to overcome the fundamental differences in principles and structures between electrons and photons. That being said, replacing on-chip electronic resources with optical components has great potential due to the low latency and high bandwidth of light propagation. When optical components are coupled with a wavelength division multiplexing, or WDM, device, new opportunities emerge for parallel computation as multiple signals can be managed at the same time. In fact, optoelectronic or photonic circuits for WDMs have been the first optoelectronic integrated circuits created. However, the technology still lacks maturity. Recently, however, one of the more elusive goals of the photonic computing world was achieved. The development of an on-chip non-volatile photonic memory has been developed and offers the potential to replace previous volatile photonic memory devices. The non-volatile photonic memory uses innovative phase changes material and eliminates the need to convert optical signals into electrical signals for data storage and then back again for data transmission.